Gaming laptops are awesome. They let us easily take a powerful gaming machine anywhere we want to. But some gaming laptops are a lot more portable than others. So is it worth it to sacrifice portability for power? Or should you just stick to a tried and trusted thick boy? Well, today I'm comparing the 2025 Zephyrus G16 with the 2025 STRIX G16. So let's find out. And please like and subscribe if you like these type of videos. From the outside, these two gaming laptops are quite different. The Zephyrus G16 has a sleek, full aluminum body which makes it look very premium, but the STRIX G16 is very obviously a gaming laptop, with RGB and all. It has a full plastic body, so the Zephyrus does feel a little sturdier, but the STRIX's plastic is not low quality. They both have some lighting, but while the Zephyrus has this single LED strip at the back, which looks a little bit more stealthy, the STRIX has a full RGB strip at the front here, which does look really cool. But obviously, one is a bit more professional in an office setting than the other. And the Zephyrus is a lot easier to carry around in the office as well, since the STRIX G16 is quite heavy compared to the Zephyrus, so it's a lot less portable. But that's mainly because it has a lot more cooling, which is apparent by its thickness. But that thickness ain't for nothing. They may be spec'd similarly, but the STRIX G16 is basically like a Zephyrus G16 on steroids. It has access to a lot more power for its CPU and GPU, and it also has the fastest processor in any laptop ever. I spec'd these two as closely as I could to really see what that extra thickness gives you in terms of performance. So it'll be really interesting to see how they compare. Being thick also has other advantages. For example, the STRIX is able to house more and bigger ports. So the STRIX G16 has a full-size Ethernet port, but the Zephyrus has a full-size SD card slot, since it's marketed more towards creators. Since the STRIX needs more power, it also has a slightly larger and heavier power brick, but it uses a generic barrel plug instead of the new Asus connector like on the Zephyrus. Either one could use a way smaller charger for on the go though, since they both support USB-C charging up to 100 watts. Their keyboards are also pretty different. The Zephyrus has a single zone RGB backlight, so you can pick colors for the entire keyboard, but the STRIX has per key RGB backlighting, which allows for some very cool looking effects. Now this is what their keyboards sound like. The Zephyrus sounds and feels a bit more clicky, while the STRIX is a bit more thumpy. They both are very satisfying to type on, and while they're a bit different, I think they're both really great. The STRIX does have a couple extra buttons here, since it uses a more unorthodox, bigger keyboard layout. And it also has full-size arrow keys, instead of those half-size ones on the Zephyrus. Where it gets interesting though, is with their trackpads. On the surface, they might not look very different, except for that the Zephyrus's one is a little bigger. But when I press this button on the STRIX, it lights up a full numpad under the trackpad. This is a pretty intuitive way to implement one without moving the whole keyboard to the left. It might be a bit to get used to, but it's definitely handy, and the Zephyrus doesn't have a numpad at all. And you could always just turn it off, so it doesn't get in the way. As for the trackpads themselves, the Zephyrus definitely sounds and feels more premium. It requires less force to press down, and it's made of glass, so it feels a little better. Their displays are also very different, since the STRIX has an IPS-like display, while the Zephyrus has an OLED. And while the STRIX's display definitely isn't bad, it's nowhere close to being an OLED. OLED has way higher contrast, incredibly vibrant colors, and those blacks are black. The IPS display will be good for like 99% of people, but the OLED is like a whole nother level of good. And while they both have 240Hz refresh rates, the Zephyrus is a little bit snappier since OLED has near instant pixel response times. Most people aren't gonna notice this though, so either one will be awesome to play fast-paced games on. They both get just as bright at 500 nits, but the Zephyrus looks a little brighter and it also has a higher contrast. The Zephyrus does have an anti-reflective layer, which is a lot better than other glossy displays, but the matte display on the STRIX still removes reflections leagues better. Their display hinges work differently, but the Zephyrus is a bit more loose, so it does have more display wobble. But it also opens up a little further, although neither one of these can go the full 180 degrees. And now for my favorite part, the speaker comparison. Yeah, the Zephyrus sounds a lot better. There's a reason I call this thing the speaker king. It gets a lot louder, it has a bigger soundstage, it has surround sound, which actually works, and it has way more bass. And you can really hear that difference in things like music or games. It simply has the best speakers in any Windows laptop by far, and it actually rivals the MacBook Pro 16. And while the STRIX G16 has okay speakers that are probably fine for most use cases, the Zephyrus obviously wins here. They both definitely have good microphones and webcams, but I'd say the Zephyrus looks a bit better and definitely sounds a lot more balanced in my opinion. Either way, both should be more than fine. Which finally brings us to performance. It's not a question of whether the STRIX G16 is faster, but by how much. Well, by a whole lot. In Cinebench R23, it performs almost 50% faster than the Zephyrus in multi-core, and it shows very well that it's the current fastest laptop chip in the world. And in 3D Mark TimeSpy, while it has a higher CPU score, that extra wattage for its 5070 Ti isn't doing very much right now. But that's all just numbers. How does it perform in a mixed workload, like some actual games?
Okay. I love you, man. Oh, okay.
Kinda game.
You motherfucker, man. You motherfucker, man.
I'll hack you to pieces. Ha! You'll never take me down.
Uh-oh.
These results are downright impressive. While it didn't show it in the benchmarks, that extra power for the STRIX G16's GPU is doing a lot for its performance. In GPU-intensive games like Cyberpunk and Oblivion, it got a healthy boost in FPS. But in CPU-intensive games, it's an entire league faster than the Zephyrus. I have literally never seen this kind of performance for Rust and CS2 on a laptop ever. So just like its desktop X3D counterparts, it's very obvious that this is the fastest CPU on any laptop right now. Now sure, they can both handle pretty much every game you throw at it with high frame rates, but since the STRIX has such a powerful CPU and a lot more power to work with, it's simply a lot faster. Now, battery life is where it gets complicated. I tested them in two scenarios, under light use and during gaming. In the light use scenario, I played a YouTube video until their batteries died, with their displays at full brightness, at 60 Hz, and with their dedicated GPUs turned off. And the Zephyrus did last a little longer here, but this isn't the entire story. The Zephyrus's little brother, the G14, has almost double the battery life of the G16. And this is all because it uses a way more efficient AMD processor. So if this Zephyrus G16 had an AMD chip, it would have done a lot better in battery life. Now the STRIX has lower battery life because, well, it basically has a desktop chip inside of it. Now in the gaming test, I played Battlefield 1 with the same settings as before on battery. And while the Zephyrus did last a little longer, you simply should not be buying a gaming laptop if you want a portable gaming experience. Now the STRIX obviously uses a lot more power than the Zephyrus, but how does it handle all of that heat? Well, actually a little better than the Zephyrus. Yes, it uses more power, but it also has a way beefier cooling system, so it handles that beast of a Ryzen processor quite well. However, the Zephyrus is completely silent under light use, if the GPU is off, while the STRIX almost always has a slight fan noise. But during gaming, they were both about as loud. Since the STRIX G16 is a lot thicker though, it has a lot more upgradeability. They both have two M.2 SSD slots for upgradable storage, and they both also have a replaceable Wi-Fi card. But the STRIX G16 has two SODIMM RAM slots for easily upgradable RAM, while the Zephyrus unfortunately has soldered RAM. But on the redesign of the STRIX, it also has this cool easily removable back, which uses 0 screws. But this is only available on the Intel models of the STRIX, which I will review later. Now, while this is all fine and dandy, how much do they cost? Well, with an RTX 5070 Ti, the STRIX G16 starts at around $2,500 to $2,700. But the Zephyrus is a little bit more expensive, staying around $2,800 to $3,000. Yes, that is a lot of money, but they're already dropping in price, and I've actually seen the Zephyrus go for a lot lower than this. Either way, they're around the same price, so you're not paying a premium for one or the other. Which brings us to our conclusion. Which one of these is better? The more portable device or the more powerful device? Well, it really depends on what you're looking for. The STRIX G16 has the fastest CPU in the world on a laptop, and it crushes absolutely anything. But the Zephyrus is the thinnest and most portable 16-inch gaming laptop that you can buy. So here's my conclusion. If you sit at a desk a lot and don't move around much with your laptop, get the STRIX G16. But do you move around a lot with your laptop, for example in college, and prefer a more portable and professional device? Then get the Zephyrus G16. They're both great devices and can easily handle every current and future game for at least another 5 years. So it all depends on your lifestyle. Now me personally, I move around a lot and use my laptop on my lap frequently, so I prefer the Zephyrus G16. It's built like a tank, it looks great, and it isn't too flashy. But these two are both just awesome gaming laptops. Now let me give a huge shout out to my YouTube members. Soundwive, Thomas, Inky, Mr. Frosty Dude, Dropzone1, Martijn Snijkers, David Gill, Flimsy, Lawrence De Fabrizio, Aki, Disco Volante, Walter, Suryansh, Daniel, Mr. Nuke, Sebastian, Christian Sands, Real Elf, Squatchbond, Alan, Toasted, A Random Guy, QME, and Eric the Rad. If you become a YouTube member, you get early access to content of mine, a shout out at the end of every video, and you'll also be supporting me as a creator to make these videos. And of course, you'll also be part of the Cool Guys Club, so you can use cool emojis like these in the comment section. So join the club if you're interested. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye!
Poi esse daí, ó, tá ligado? Esse bicho aí, ó, ele fica observando você só porque ele não é não do mal, ele não faz não nada.